Welcome everyone to the 2021 Olympia Neighborhoods Candidate Forum. My name is Paul Horton. I'm glad you could be here. The City of Olympia created the Recognized Neighborhood Association program in 1989. And neighborhood associations do a variety of things, including conducting social events, improvement projects, promoting activities to enhance the quality of life of our neighborhoods, and they're a way to communicate neighborhood interest with the city. There are 35 recognized neighborhoods who share information and collaborate under the Council of Neighborhood Associations. And if you'd like to learn more or become involved in a neighborhood association, you can send an email to cna.olympia@gmail.com. Several different neighborhood associations have come together to sponsor this 2021 Council Election Forum that will focus on issues of particular interest to city neighborhoods. Special thanks to the team of forum organizing neighborhoods that includes Bigelow Highlands Downtown Neighborhood Association, East Side Neighborhood Association, East Bay Drive Neighborhood Association, Nottingham Community Association, and the Southwest Olympia Neighborhood Association. Also, thanks again to the Council of Neighborhood Associations, and special appreciation to Thurston Community Media for providing the venue and resources to make this virtual forum possible. All 10 of the Olympia candidates for the 5 positions up for election this November have been invited to participate. Only one candidate, Spence Wygand, who sends his regrets, will not be able to attend the forum due to a prior commitment. The questions, we have selected 5 different questions, and these are based on Olympia Neighborhood Association submissions. The majority of the questions that were received fell into the following areas: housing, public safety, homelessness, neighborhood engagement and recognition, and land use. The way these forums work is that each candidate is going to be given 2 minutes to answer each question. And then at the end of the 5 questions, there'll be each candidate will get 2 minutes for a closing statement. So we're talking today with right now the City Olympia Council member Lisa Parshley, and this has to do with position 5 that she is running for. She is running against Talauna Reed, who we have not heard from her, and she may or may not be joining late, and we'll figure out what to do if and when she joins us. But for now, welcome, Councilmember Parshley, and thank you for participating in the Neighborhood Forum and for furthering our community's engagement in civic life. All right, so this first question is on the topic of neighborhood engagement and recognition. So this year, the City of Olympia commissioned a community engagement and public opinion survey, and their consultants found that only 28% agree that neighborhoods are engaged in decision-making, and only 16% feel confident the city listens to resident feedback. So given these low numbers, if reelected to the City Council, what would you do to improve on engaging neighborhoods and instilling confidence that Olympia residents are being listened to?
That's an excellent question, and it has occupied the minds of all 7 council members since I've been on council. But before I get going, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Parshley. I was elected in 2017 and has served since 2018. And for me, the best part about a campaign is getting a chance to discuss these kinds of issues and how they potentially affect the health and happiness of our community. And during elections, during these forums, candidates get to have these conversations, get to hear from the community, and get to doorbell and get a personal survey based on survey, not scientific, but we actually get to hear the context behind survey questions like this. So to answer this question, how do we engage better the neighborhoods? I would actually say it expands out besides the neighborhoods. How do we engage our entire community better? Honestly, if I was to say one thing the city could absolutely 100% do better is communication. And communication is not just what we're telling the community, but what we're getting back, and acknowledging the receipt of that information and getting dialogue together. For that matter, we hired a consultant in January to start working with our communication department to develop better social media context, improve our website, work on how do we communicate best with the community. And at this point, I can tell you that Olympia, in comparison to Bellingham and Eugene, has about Well, those two cities have about 13 communication staffers. We have 2. So we're in the process of hiring more communication staff so that we can actually engage our community in two-way conversations. Because I agree, I don't disagree with this survey result. We could do better and we have to do better, because I believe in participatory democracy, which is having the voters actually drive what happens in the local jurisdictions. The best way we can do that is improve our communications.
Thank you very much. The second question is on the topic of homelessness. A senior person living in the neighborhood of older, modest homes east of downtown Olympia wrote, "I see more and more RV encampments along city roads with unmanaged trash and nuisance behaviors, such as nudity and public urination, all despite city outreach and cleanup efforts. And I worry that these RVs will soon start parking on the streets where families live." Also noted was that when the state of Washington recently cleared and prohibited RV parking along the Deschutes Parkway, some of these RVs are now parking on Olympia streets. So if reelected to the city council, what would you do to prevent the spread of these encampments in Olympia? What actions would you take to have Tumwater, Lacey, and the county step up and provide a safe and sanitary place for people that have no home other than RV to legally park? So kind of a two-part question.
So regional, just so I'm understanding, what would we do to deal with these RVs and these encampments? And then how would we get regional?
Yeah, what would you do to prevent the spread of them in Olympia? And then what would you do for regional collaboration? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is an excellent, thoughtful question. And I would say simple answer for the first part. One, we need to work with the One Community Plan. The One Community Plan is a plan that was developed through a public process, and it's a community member plan. We passed it in February 2020, March 2020, pandemic hit. The governor put an edict on moving any single camp for the last year and a half. That edict actually ended at the end of July. Why is that important? Well, the One Community Plan is a 3-part plan: connection to services, housing, and public safety. Public safety includes how do we deal with camps? How do we move these folks into a more compassionate situations, but more compassionate for the whole community? How do we deal with the predators that are preying on the people in these camps in our neighborhoods? During this period of time, we weren't allowed to do a lot of that work. So in my opinion, the One Community Plan has not been fully in action since we passed it. Now that we don't have this edict, I absolutely believe we should give this plan a chance. For example, we are moving 15 to 20 of the RVs off Ensign Street onto Carpenter Way temporarily to allow us to free up the passage into the hospital. The rest of the RVs are going to be moved once we purchase some land with the county to move the rest of them. How do we prevent the spread? Well, in the third part of the One Community Plan is not allowing camps to develop. Lastly, absolutely, we need to get regional involvement. For the first thing I would say is we need to get the county to pass Home Fund, because our Home Fund has helped build 240 housing units at this point. We need the county to get into it, which will help Lacey and Tumwater host some of this activity.
Thank you very much. The third question is on the topic of public safety. Public safety is an important issue for neighborhoods. According to the city's own survey, 79% of residents think downtown is on the wrong track, and only 24% feel safe downtown at night. Another survey on city parks showed 42% of residents indicated there are parks in the city of Olympia where they currently do not feel safe. Given that what Olympia has been doing so far is believed to be on the wrong track, if elected, what would you do differently to address the safety and security concerns of residents in neighborhoods, the downtown, and in parks?
Well, first, I live downtown. I walk to work every single day from one side of downtown to the other side on East Side and State. So I have been watching over the last couple of years what downtown looks like. When we passed the public safety levy in 2017 and started to enact that, that included crisis response unit, walking patrol, community policing. We need to expand these further. As a matter of fact, the council voted to approve 24/7 for the crisis response unit. We would like to expand the walking patrol as well as the community police, because this allows presence. And if you just have simple presence, it does deter crime and people who are acting as predators. So just the presence of that, and then also allowing the police to do their job by having the crisis response unit be 24/7 and familiar faces. And we've expanded the ambassadors. We used to have 2 ambassadors. We now have 4. It's possible we will go further and have more. The other thing that I support is the Downtown Investment District, which is changing our Parking and Business Assessment District, which is known as PBIA, into a bigger, more robust program for downtown that might provide more guides and ambassadors and clean team. And go back to the first question I got, we need to really enact the full amount of the one community plan so that we can make sure that we have public safety covered and we are taking care of those that are unsheltered and getting them into appropriate situations so that we don't have camps that allow the predators to show up in our town.
All right, on to the 4th question. It is on the topic of housing. A neighborhood member stated, I have lived in the same house on the northeast side of Olympia for 30 years. Homes here are older, moderate in scale. All city council actions on housing are about helping developers build market rate apartment buildings. This does nothing to encourage home ownership, which is still a goal of most families. People like me are seeing huge property increases with no relief unless I sell my house and move out of Olympia. So this again is a 2-part question. First, what will you do to help current homeowners keep their homes? And what will you do to create a path for renters to build equity and provide some measure of economic security through ownership of their housing?
Can I just make sure I got this question correctly?
Yep.
So 2 parts. One is how do we keep folks in their houses? And the second part is how do we help renters build equity? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. Economic security through ownership of their housing. Yep.
Okay. The first part, in my opinion, has to do with the fact that we have an additional 20 to 25,000 people expected in Olympia alone in the next 15 to 20 years, which means we have to build roughly, if you figure about 2 to 1.5 to 2 people per housing unit, 14,000 more housing units, just simple number. Since I've been in office, we probably have not built an additional 6,000 in our county. So let's just put it at 20,000 housing units. This makes both the market raise. We've seen over 100,000 average cost of housing or house in our city in the last 1.5 to 2 years. So we don't have enough housing, period. We need to build housing. Yes, that's market. Yes, that's affordable. Yes, that's permanent affordable. So we need to not only get housing going and built, but we need to also get trade training going because we don't have enough people to build it. If a builder can only make one house because that's all the labor they have, they're going to build the expensive one. So one, we've got to get housing built. The city's job is the affordable, and the workforce, we got to stay out of the way of the market. How do we get renters to build up equity? Simple. We need to work with land trusts like the Thurston County Land Trust, which is buying the land and allowing renters and lower income folks purchase the building and get equity. We also, as a city, have to leverage our land to provide the ability for these renters to actually purchase. And lastly, we need to work with the state on condo laws so people can potentially buy condos, or we can use that law to provide ownership opportunities.
Thank you very much. And our 5th and final question is on the topic of land use. Actions by the City of Olympia have effectively eliminated single-family neighborhood zoning. If reelected, what would you do to preserve the character of existing neighborhoods, such as protecting the tree canopy, views, low traffic volumes, and adequate on-street parking, while the city pursues a policy of high-density development?
That's excellent. First off, I have to say that I'm the chair of the Regional Climate Mitigation Plan. So a lot of these are actually kind of intersecting with each other. The city council has repeatedly passed the views zoning, meaning that we do believe views are important, and that when there's a building that could potentially impact the views, that has to be taken into account. Second, when we pass the first missing middle, which is currently not in action, Nathaniel Jones and Clark Gilman and myself managed to put together a compromise which strengthened the design review. Design review looks at the buildings and the residential buildings that ensure that the character of the neighborhood, the uniqueness of the neighborhood is preserved, and that we can prevent, hopefully, the random 10 duplexes showing up, destroying the nature of the neighborhood. As far as tree canopy goes, absolutely, 100%. We need to keep the green spaces. That's how we're going to do carbon sequestration. We absolutely have to keep green spaces. If we're expecting our communities to get more dense, we not only have to do tree canopy, green spaces for carbon sequestration, but it's mental health. We need the folks to be able to get out of the high density, get into parks, take walks along streets where there's greenness. But ultimately, as a climate mitigation planning steering committee, I have to say the best thing we can do for climate mitigation is densify our neighborhoods to protect the rural spaces, both for growing food and for carbon sequestration, both the forests, the prairies, the wetlands, and the farmlands, because regenerative farming will help that.
Well, thank you very, very much. And as I indicated previously, you will have 2 minutes for a final statement.
As I started this whole thing saying that it's an opportunity, campaigns are an opportunity to have conversations with our community. I think these are extremely vital. It's also vital for candidates to get out and doorbell in a safe manner in this COVID era, to hear from our community, to hear their opinions, what will make their community better, because it allows a candidate to filter through the loud voices that at times we can hear at council. We need to know what the majority of our community thinks about things like social justice and equity, something that's built into the very foundation of our government. How do we reimagine public safety and bring our justice system into the 21st century? How are we going to recover from COVID, both personal and economic? Our continued work with homelessness and housing. We need to work on climate mitigation and sea level rise. This is how an individual council member can take those voices they hear during a campaign to council to remind them that sometimes the loud, angry voices are not necessarily the majority of our community. Olympia, like many of our country cities, is facing a multitude of intersectional crises. There's been 5 declared crises since I've been in office. Issues that will require sustained multi-year work by all the city councils in our region. And that means we have to also commit to regional work, working with Lacey, Tumwater, and the county, so that we can deal with homelessness, housing, COVID recovery, climate change, and sea level rise mitigation. I'm Lisa Parshley. I'm running for re-election because I love Olympia and I love Olympians. And believe it or not, I love the work of City Council.
Well, Council Member Lisa Parshley, on behalf of the Council of Neighborhood Associations and the team of neighborhood associations that collaborated to organize this forum, and I'd like to thank on behalf of the entire community, want to thank you so very much for participating in this neighborhood forum and for continuing to further community engagement in civic life. Thank you.